I like to keep things simple, and I think things are simple and can be simple and should be, because I think we were made that way. All this complicated stuff that goes on in our world today is created by lawyers, isn't it? I mean, and you gotta understand, I think, or accept, at least I do, that because it's complicated, it must mean they're trying to hide something from us. Because things can always be simple. We're simple. You know, if you want to give me an orange, you just say, here, here's an orange, I give it to you. And I would say, thank you, and that would be that. But get a bunch of lawyers involved in you giving me an orange, and you've got a 35-page agreement that nobody can understand, including most lawyers, I suppose, but they do that kind of thing. You know, they make things complicated. Well, that's also, I think, what's been happening with the law. You know, the what we call law, the statutes and the acts that are passed by Parliament and everything else. Every one of them, of course, as everybody knows, every one of them was created by a lawyer or a bunch of lawyers. And take the Income Tax Act, for example. What on earth are you going to do with that? There, 2,000 or 3,000, well, it was, the last time I looked at it was 2,500 pages or 2,600 pages long. And you are supposed to understand that and comply, if you're going to comply with it, and you are expected to comply with it. But the point is, are you, a human being, expected to comply with it? Or is it the person? They keep calling us a person. Well, is there a difference between a human being and a person? Is a person something that you have, or is it something that you are? And then they, first thing they do when they take you to court is ask you your name, and when you give a name to them, they are just like little children. Got you now. And they do. That's the game they're playing, I think, in court for the most part, is the name. You give them a name, and that name, by the way, sounds, you think it's your name, the one that your parents gave you, and of course it is. But there's another name out there floating around that sounds exactly the same when you say it. And it's the name that appears on the birth certificate. That name is not the same name as your name. Proof of that, or at least an indicator of that, is, you write down your name the way you were taught in English, if you will, to write it down, and then take out your birth certificate and look at that name. And you will notice right away that although they are similar, and if you pronounce them, they're the same, they sound the same, invariably they will all, on the birth certificate, all names are in all capital letters. That's not how you wrote yours, I can almost guarantee you. If you went to school and learned in English how to write a proper name, it's uppercase and then lowercase. First letter and those following it are in lowercase. So there's something going on. And in other cases, on the birth certificate, the last or family name, if you will, is first, followed by a comma, and then the rest of the names. Sometimes they might even appear in upper lowercase, but the family name will always, without exception, never fail, be in all capital letters. There's a reason for that. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's the beginning and end of it, and once you know that, you've got them by the shorties or whatever, but it's there. It's meaningful. There's something going on. That name was created under law, and it's a legal name. And they'll even say to you, what is your legal name? And we never think about that, but very, very significant. Don't give them your legal name, because that's a name that belongs to the government, and you carry it around in your wallet. Or in your safe with your where you keep your birth certificate, but that name is very significant, and your name is your name, and it's different from that name, which is their name. And when you give your name that sounds like their name, they assume that you're saying you are their name, and they got you. Now they've got authority over you. Why is that significant? Well, we all know that nobody should ever on this earth have authority over us without our consent. And many of us know that we're not consenting to most of what's going on, but we're subjected to it anyway. And then there's the other aspect that's taking place here. It's the person. Everybody keeps being called a person, and we keep referring to ourselves as persons. Well, you know something? We're not persons. We're human beings. We're men and women. And how do I know that? Well, I refer to the Bible, which is, as I've often said, the most ancient writings on planet Earth. In there, we're referred to as men and women, not as persons. In fact, that Bible tells us that God is no respecter of persons. So there's something going on with this person thing as well. So those are some of the clues that we've had, and some of the clues that I'm trying to pass on to you now to let you know that something is wrong. And this is how, in fact, they, the system, the authorities, as we refer to them, this is how they've gained authority over us. Because this book teaches us that we're all equal, created equal in dignity and rights. And interestingly enough, so does the International Bill of Human Rights. In Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says we are, all human beings, if you will, are born equal in dignity and rights. And so this book recognizes that. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes that. And that document, along with two documents that were born out of that document, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the other one, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, have been ratified by Canada and are legally binding on Canada. So it's not just another document. These things are legally binding on Canada, and when it says we're born equal, it carries in law, in the system that we live under, a little more authority than this, I believe, in their minds. It really doesn't, because our system and our laws, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, for example, recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law. So God's law is also supreme, but that's more or less an argument, that can be argued against by judges and on others in the system. But the Universal Declaration of Human Rights cannot be argued against. That's their own laws. That's their own rules. That document, by the way, was authored mainly by a Canadian, adopted by the United Nations, and Canada became a signatory to it. So those documents, which are international law, are enforceable by the United Nations against Canada and all of its minions, or its agents and so on, such as judges and CRA agents and so on. That document is enforceable against these people. And when you claim some of these human rights, it is done. First of all, let me finish that statement. It is done, and everybody must respect that. But we have rights. We have what are called natural rights under, say, God's law. God gave us dominion. Each and every one of us shared dominion over the earth and all things of it. So we're the supreme beings here. Not government. Government is a creation or an organ of man, created by man. And then judges were created by that organ or that institution called government. And cops were created by that organization, government, and so on. So how can a creation of man, which is government, and then further creations of government have authority over me, a human being? And the answer is they don't. But we allow them to take it. They take it, and it's all a smoke and mirrors, or deception hidden truths and so on. That's what's going on. We are assumed to be the name. We are assumed to be a person. And all of their laws, all of their acts and statutes, including the Child Protective Agency or Act or whatever it is called, I really don't know what it's called, but the Income Tax Act, we all know what that's called. All of those acts, the Highway Traffic Act, it all speaks to and applies to persons. And if you're not a person, if you're a human being, those acts do not apply to you unless you want them to. Now, in order to do so, you have to exercise what is called a human right, which is recorded in the International Bill of Human Rights by man, so it's man's law. You have to exercise one of those rights, or assert one of those rights, which in Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 16 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights affords you the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. I mean, that tells you a couple of things. First, it's your right to be recognized, which is not a compulsion. They can't force you to be recognized as a person. Secondly, there's a difference between you and a person, or you wouldn't be given the right to be recognized as a person, right? So I mean, that's pretty academic and simple stuff. So there's two ways now. Don't forget that they're getting authority over us. They're assuming we are the name, the legal name, which is theirs, over which they do have authority, and they are assuming that we are also a person. And so if we have a right to be a person, or to recognition as a person before the law, and when we do that, or when we are so recognized, and all this legislation of man, of the government, applies to us, then we're under their authority, and we're subjected to those acts, and that's why we lose our children. That's why we lose our money through income tax. That's why we have to have a driver's license and then comply with all those rules and get tickets if we run through a stop sign or if we go over the speed limit and all that kind of stuff. It's all crap. It's all garbage. It's all about money. It's all a system of commerce, and we don't have to be part of that. We can do something about it, and what we can do is put the government on notice, and that we, first of all, waive our right to recognition as a person before the law. Right there, none of the laws apply to us anymore, with rare exceptions. I mean, there's portions of the criminal code that apply to human beings as well as persons. So, and this is very, very significant. It might sound, like it's unimportant, or that it's bizarre, and you might think, I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, check it out. Don't believe what I'm saying. I wouldn't want that. Check it out for yourself.